In the past, I've done level 20 epic gear loadout videos, I've done kind of minor gear showcase stuff, but now that we know that there's probably a large gear update coming to the game in the future, I figured just before that happens, I'd go ahead and lay out my favorite loadout for every single character. So we're going to go through this list mostly in alphabetical order, starting off with Aquaman. My favorite loadout for Aquaman, at least right now, is definitely his Justice League loadout with a little bit of minor tweaks. As you can see, that's definitely not the helmet from Justice League, and I don't think it's the trident either, but regardless, this is the look I like. I want to use the God shader because of the color it gets on the armor, but I think the white eyes is a little bit off-putting for this type of loadout. Regardless, I think it looks pretty awesome. Moving on to the Atom. This is my gear loadout that's semi-inspired by the CW version of Atom. You can't quite get the CW look in-game right now, but this is about as close as you're going to get, and that's the same reason I'm using the default shader here, but regardless, it's the version of the character I enjoy playing the most. Next up is Atrocitus, and this is one of the few characters I actually own a tournament shader for, and it's because he looks awesome with it, doesn't he? Look at that. Look at his arms, look at all the yellow, it all looks so good. Big fan of this loadout, and I'm a big fan of playing Atrocitus. It's actually a character I want to start picking up again, because he was initially the main character I played in both the beta and at the start of the game's release. Next up is Bane. Bane is not a character I often play, so my opinion on this might be a little bit off, but I think this is roughly one of the best looks you can get for him. Kind of a big bulky chest area, big arms, and then the red venom I think looks particularly awesome. And it is definitely the one I use when I do play Bane. That being said, I do not play Bane very frequently. Next up is Batman, one of my main characters. I love Batman. His gameplay style is one of my favorites in the entire game, and his moveset in general, and the tournament shader looks fantastic on Batman. Even on the glowing parts of his suits, all the highlights look amazing. The solid parts of the suit look amazing as well because they just look like pure gold, and that gold color contrasts really well with the black parts of the suit. 10 out of 10. I love this shader and I love the loadout that goes with it. Next up is Black Adam, and really you can go with any kind of heavy armor look for Black Adam in my opinion. You put as much armor as you can on him, and then you throw the Ammon Strength alternative shader on him and he looks amazing. The purple contrasting with the silver, and usually you've got a lot of armor on. It looks fantastic. Definitely one of the best loadout styles you can go for when trying to make a Black Adam loadout. Next up is Black Canary. I love this loadout as well. Doesn't she look awesome? I like the biker jacket and the thick leather pants. You can get one of these loadouts where she has like elbow pads as well as this biker jacket, but I think without the elbow pads it looks a little bit better. Definitely my favorite loadout for her, and my favorite thing about this loadout is you can actually switch up the shader and it looks relatively the same, and you can get the same kind of style of look, so you can actually mix it up quite a lot with just this loadout. Next up is Black Manta. Black Manta has some amazing gear in Injustice 2, and it was really hard to decide what my favorite look was for him, but I like this one the most. It's kind of a big bulky look. He's got massive shoulder pads, a lot of armor everywhere on his suit, and the jetpack's really bulky. I know you won't be able to see the jetpack properly with this picture, and I apologize for that, but that's the way it has to be for these videos, or else it would take me literally hours upon hours to edit this thing. Next up is Blue Beetle, and I really want to use the tournament shader on this loadout, but I don't actually own the tournament shader for Blue Beetle, and I don't really want to buy it. There's a premier skin on its way next patch, so I'm going to want to get that and save my source crystals for that, so that's why I don't have it here. Regardless, I think this loadout looks pretty awesome, even with the Galactic Midnight alternative shader. I love the yellow highlights. It contrasts really well with the solid blue on his chest. Next up is Brainiac. I think when you make a Brainiac loadout, you actually have to go with this shader. The colors are fantastic. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Lex Luthor, but that's not the main reason I like it. I just think it looks really cool. The white with the green and the purple / pinkish color I think looks fantastic, and with this big and bulky loadout it looks really good in motion. I really do wish I could show you it in motion. Just try out Brainiac in game with this shader and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It looks awesome. Next up is Captain Cold. In all honesty, I'm a little bit disappointed in Captain Cold's gear options in Injustice 2. I really hope he gets some amazing gear with the next gear update, because his gear options currently in the game are very similar. They have a lot of differences when you look at them, but the style of loadout you have is always going to be this type of thing. Very militaristic, with grenades everywhere on his chest, and there's no other direction you can take his loadouts. Where with other characters, you can do tons of different things. With Brainiac, you can go for kind of a slim look, or you can go for a bulky look. You can go for on Batman, you can go for a very tech-based look, or you can go for a very normal, traditional Batman look, or you can go for a big and bulky Batman look. But with Captain Cold, you have to go for this kind of militaristic style, and I think this is roughly the best loadout you can get with that style. Catwoman, on the other hand, does have a lot of options for different types of loadouts, but I think this is still the best one for her. Cat burglar in nature, you got the mask on, and very dark clothing. I think that suits Catwoman best. Cheetah is a character that I believe the absolute correct loadout for is 100% definitely Vixen, but in the case that you aren't going to pick Vixen, I think this loadout is pretty solid as well. I really like the Bombshell mask. I like that one a lot because A, it's a reference to Bombshell, which is pretty awesome, and B, it's just a pretty cool look in general. This is the correct shader for Cyborg, at least in my opinion. When I make Cyborg loadouts, I think that the fullback alternative shader is the way to go. The bright white along with the blue accents and even the red accents look fantastic all together to create this pretty awesome look. And I'll also mention I really like that helmet that Cyborg has on. Moving on to Darkseid, I wanted to go for kind of a traditional Darkseid look. I did get some extra shoulder pads on there, and his belt buckle isn't the same that it normally is, but it still is a very traditional style Darkseid, and it's not even his default shader either. This is the Omega Effect alternative. I think it makes him look very dark and intimidating, which is exactly what I think Darkseid should look like. Next up is Deadshot, and this is another character that I'm a little bit disappointed in with their gear because, again, there's only really one option you can go with. It's all about the militaristic look, which is cool, and it looks awesome, but it would be nice to have some more options, and I hope that's what we get with the new gear update. Deadshot is in desperate need of it. That being said, I think this is a pretty awesome looking loadout, and you can even change around the shader with this one, and it looks relatively similar, so there's a lot of variety with this one, similar to what I was talking about with the Black Canary loadout earlier on in this video. This is a character I wish I spent more time with, man. He is so fun to play, and he's got some amazing gear, as you can tell. I like this one a lot. I don't usually go for big and bulky looks with Dr. Fate, but I went with it this time because I think it suits the shader, and I really wanted to use those legs. I think it looks kind of cool. Next up is Enchantress. Enchantress being one of my more favorite characters to play on the roster. Big fan of the character. I think they knocked it out of the park with her kit. Such an amazing kit and such an amazing character, and has some awesome gear to go along with it, as you can see with this loadout. I use the Electrum shader on it because I think it looks awesome. You guys know me, I have a huge bias when it comes to bright colors, especially when they're contrasted quite nicely, so usually I like colors like white and black and black and red when they all come together, and in this case you can see my bias coming through with the white and black shader here using Electrum. Speaking of a white and black shader, here we go with the Deathstorm loadout for Firestorm. Looking awesome. I could say a similar thing about Firestorm that I said about Deadshot and who else did I say that about? Captain Cold, having very similar styles of loadouts, but with Firestorm it's a little bit better because you can kind of go for a futuristic, closed-in helmet style look for Firestorm, or you can go for kind of just a regular traditional Firestorm look. So I won't use that complaint here, but after you make, just a few different loadouts for Firestorm, you start to see a lot of similarities. Next up is Gorilla Grodd. Of course I had to use the skull-infused armor. It looks so good. Big and bulky is the way to go when you make a Gorilla Grodd loadout, at least in my opinion, so you gotta have those big skulls there, making him look big and intimidating. You know that he is the king of Gorilla City because he lets you know by how intimidating he is. Love Gorilla Grodd, and I wish he was a little bit easier to play because I would definitely play him more frequently. Next up is Green Arrow. I think there's going to be an entirely new awesome loadout for him next patch with, of course, the long-awaited Green Arrow hood, but for now, I think this is probably roughly the best loadout you can get for him. I know some people might not like this shader, but I actually think it's one of the best ones he has, unless you're trying to make like an Arsenal-inspired loadout, I guess. Next up is my loadout for Green Lantern. I love this shader, especially because on this chest piece here, you can see this kind of like golden block area and near the rib cage. I think that looks awesome. Just a little bit of touch of gold on the suit, and I think it comes together quite nicely. Next up is Harley Quinn. Honestly, I think literally you can throw any random assortment of 5 pieces of gear on Harley Quinn and throw an awesome shader on there, and Harley Quinn looks awesome. They did an amazing job with Harley Quinn's gear in Injustice 2, and she should be a prime example of how to create gear for all the other characters. Really, she is incredible. So I didn't try too hard on this one. I just kind of threw together gear pieces that I thought looked cool and threw a cool shader on there and called it quits because, again, I think you can just do that with Harley Quinn. I don't think you really need like a best loadout for Harley Quinn because you're limiting yourself so much because there's so much potential in the gear that she has. Next up is Hellboy, man. Oh my god, doesn't he look so cool? Normally, I don't like the Demon Shader. You'll see there aren't very many cases of the Demon Shader in this entire video. In fact, I think this might be the only one, and the reason for it is because Hellboy happens to have this headpiece where he can cover up his eyes, so you don't get to see the dark eyes effect, even though I think a lot of people like that effect. I don't. So having that ability to close off the eyes there, I think works particularly well for this loadout. You've got the nice gray Doom Fist thing, which looks awesome. That all happens because of the Demon Shader, and then the bright red horns, of course, again, because of the Demon Shader, and the flames on his jeans are now red instead of like the kind of yellowy color they are by default. I think it looks badass. Definitely my favorite loadout for Hellboy. Next up is Poison Ivy. I knew I had to use this shader because I love the color red, and I think it looks awesome on Poison Ivy. Again, I think Poison Ivy is probably one of those characters that fall into the category of Deadshot and Captain Cold, not having a ton of different options as far as gear is concerned. Granted, there are a ton of different options, but they all kind of work towards the same goal of a specific look. So I would have liked to have seen different options for Poison Ivy, but unfortunately we didn't get them in Injustice 2. We'll see if she shows up in Injustice 3 maybe. Probably not, in my opinion. I don't think she'll make it, but a lot of people think she will, so we'll have to wait and find out. Next up is Raiden. Of course, I had to go with a classic Raiden look. This is one of my favorite loadouts for him, and whenever I do play Raiden, this is absolute. Well, if I'm not playing the Black Lightning version of the character, then I'm playing this one because I think it looks fantastic. They had to have this classic look in the game because it just looks so good, and of course, it's a shout out to his old classic design. Next is Tmnt, and I've gone with the loadout for Raphael. Of course, it looks awesome. You guys have actually already seen this loadout in my level 20 epic gear loadout video for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think he looks awesome, as you all know. Next up is Red Hood, probably my favorite DLC character as far as like gear is concerned. I think they knocked it out of the park with him, even though where he can only really work towards one look, or at least that's what a lot of people think, but I actually don't think that's true with Red Hood. You can go in many different directions. You can have him with the bat crest, and you can make him look all big and bulky like I've done here, or you can make him have kind of a more slimmed down look without the bat symbol, and make him kind of look more like an outlaw. There's a lot of subtleties you can get in there, and I think they, yeah, like I said, I think they did a really good job with his gear. Next up is Robin, and of course I had to go with a Nightwing loadout. I think he looks fantastic with this loadout, and even better in motion. For anybody who's played Robin, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He looks awesome in motion with this shader on, with the symbol going across his chest, and of course with a cape. I thought about doing the capeless look, but I think the cape works nicely. Next up is Scarecrow, and this is actually a shader I haven't used for Scarecrow in the past, but a viewer of mine who's in my Discord channel actually like linked me all of his loadouts that he has for all of the individual characters, and he had the God shader on one of his Scarecrow loadouts, and I was like, wow, that actually looks really cool. I should try out Scarecrow with the God shader, and this is the loadout I came up with. I think it looks pretty damn awesome, at least in my opinion. I especially like that the gold shader turns all of his chains into gold, so that's why I tried to use so much of the chains in this loadout. Like I said, I think it looks cool. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section. Next up is Starfire. I love her gear as well. Starfire is another prime example of gear customization done right. She has so many different options, so many different looks that you can go for, and all of them look fantastic. I like this shader a lot because of the purple color effect. I love purple. Purple is one of my more favorite colors as well, so big fan of this one. Indeed. Moving on to Sub-Zero, I really wanted to use like a noob Cybot type of loadout because I like that one a lot, but I know you guys have seen that thousands of times over again, so I wanted to try something different with this loadout. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Next up is Supergirl. Again, I do not use the God shader very often, but in this case, there's so much armor on this loadout, and cape as well works quite well with the God shader. It turns all of the metal on her loadout into pure gold, and it contrasts super well with the white clothing that she has on. It looks so fantastic. Every time I see this loadout, I want to go play Supergirl, and I think as soon as I'm done recording this video, I'm going to go do just that. And next up, oh, there is another demon shader in this video, and it's the next loadout for Superman. The reason I wanted to use this loadout, or the reason I wanted to use this demon shader, I should say, is actually because of what it does to his crest. Look at the crest. It all glows and it's kind of shiny and stuff. It looks awesome, especially because the rest of his suit is all dark and kind of evil looking, which I guess works for this version of Superman, but then there's this kind of bright red symbol in the middle of his chest, and I think it looks awesome. This loadout for the Flash kind of combines a bunch of different looks for him. It combines the Elseworld look, it combines the movie look, and it also combines the CW look because of the shader I'm using. It's just kind of an amalgamation of all of my favorite versions of the Flash. And here's a loadout for Joker. I don't know why, I really like Joker all dressed up. I don't like the kind of dressed down, kind of almost shirtless style of Joker that the game gives you by default and kind of pushes you towards that style of loadout. I think this much more dressed up, ready for a night on the town version of Joker is much better. And the final loadout in this video is going to be for Wonder Woman. I'm actually using the default headpiece here because I think it looks pretty cool, and I think it looks great. This shader in particular I think works really well, brings out a lot of gold in her loadout, and you guys know I'm a big fan of the gold color, especially when it's contrasted with nice bright colors like blue. Comes together quite well, and it is a great look for Wonder Woman. I don't actually have an image of it right now because of my current gear situation in Injustice 2, so I can't show you my favorite Swamp Thing one, but I'm sure we've all seen a similar one. It actually uses, you can use any shader really, but just try to get as much as like that pus substance that goes all over his chest and arms and everything. Put as much of that on the character as possible. That's my favorite Swamp Thing loadout. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. These videos take me so much longer to make than a regular video, so if you could go ahead and leave a like on this video, it helps other people find it, and that would be super appreciated. Subscribe to keep up to date with future content. If you're an extra tier supporter, you can come check out my Patreon linked in the description. Come say hello on Twitter. My name has been Bilbsy, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.